very substantial steps are being taken towards Bitcoin integration in the monetary system. And I don't know if you understand, Robin, what I'm trying to say here. It's like a sandbox, like an opportunity for people to apply all these theories that they have, because Bitcoiners have loads of theories. They have loads of ideas of how the world is going to be in the future. But this is a real use case. This is when you actually get to ask the real questions and see what the real problems are.
How far would you say this local circular economy has come?
There's a place that can be called Bitcoin City. Berlin is the place.
Quickly introduce yourself. Who are you and what are you doing in Bitcoin Berlin? And then let's go into what Bitcoin Berlin actually is. Gerardo, you want to start?
Yes, my name is Gerardo Linares, and I'm Salvadorian, living here in Berlin for the past 7-8 months. And ever since we moved here, we've been working towards the Bitcoin adoption here in this mountain town.
And you're the founder also of Bitcoin Berlin, right?
Yes, my girlfriend and I, we came with the idea of start a circular economy, and we came to Berlin and we started to onboard businesses.
And when did you join Charlie?
Yes, a couple of months later, Charlie came. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, about 7 months I've been here living in Berlin, but Gerardo and Evelyn had started even before that. Before you even moved to the town, you guys were coming back and forth from San Miguel for at least a month, if not more. And then there was one other Bitcoiner, let's say, in Berlin, apart from Gerardo and Evelyn, and it was kind of just starting off. But the locals were really enthusiastic about what was happening, and I mean, I think that was what attracted me to Berlin. I can give myself a small introduction if you want.
Yeah.
My name's
Please.
Charlie. I was born in Ireland and raised in Spain. I studied maths and finance and worked as an actuary, just for insurance companies and auditors, and been trying to understand about Bitcoin since 2017. And when working in the financial world as an analyst, I decided that I want to put the skills that I learned about economics and maths and finance and direct it towards Bitcoin and being a local circular economy. And I found Berlin was something that was starting to rise. I felt there was some authenticity behind what was happening here, and the job on Twitter was really good to get that attention. So I decided when I was in London, I'm going to go over and I'm going to live in Berlin. And since coming here, it's just been a massive journey. It's constantly go go go. Every day is something new is happening, and I feel like there's very substantial steps that are being taken towards Bitcoin integration in the monetary system, and people's attitude towards money shifting as the days go by, which is just amazing to see.
That's interesting because you came from London, from that place where is this Western place. How different is it from if someone from London or even Germany and this kind of world lives in? How different is it now in Berlin? That's sometimes I think it's confused with the Berlin in Germany. How different is it now in El Salvador in Berlin?
It's different worlds, completely different worlds. London was built on the financial world. It built up on the arbitrage that they could make from financial assets. That's the way it was made. So London is an expert in the fiat world or on financial world, whereas El Salvador seems to have suffered from the status quo over the last couple of centuries. So there's a different levels of capitalization in both areas. You have lot of more infrastructure built up in the West, but the direction of where society is going in terms of its moral integrity, in terms of the division between the population is much higher than in El Salvador, where people are united here. There's a very clear leader in the country. People are behind that leader, and there is the idea of sovereignty and liberty is at the forefront of the mind of people who definitely come to live here in El Salvador. So that's not principles that is at the forefront of people living in London. So yeah, you're around people who are thinking of the same principles, around like-minded people, and I think that's one of the stark differences, is that you feel like you're understood, you feel like you belong, and you feel like you can actually make progress in your own life, and you can feel like you feel more stable here. You feel like you're going into the a black hole, where in Europe, or that was my perception of it.
And that's interesting because I researched a lot about Bitcoin El Salvador before we started the episode, and the feeling I got was amazing. Like it's this hopeful, motivated. Let's rebuild something really really great. Let's do something new. It's like almost like a startup city kind of feeling that I got. Like I was never in El Salvador, and I'm really sorry for that because I have to go there. I wanted to go there even last year, and I think this November with adopting Bitcoin, I hopefully will be able to do it. But this is the feeling I get when I speak with people from El Salvador on the podcast, or when I speak with people that are moved to El Salvador. I spoke yesterday with Lina Seiche, like the mother of the little hodler, and she's also now kind of settling in El Salvador. And this is the
Thought
feeling I get from the place.
today here down in Lena in person.
Oh yeah. She's there, right? Since the time, and maybe for Gerardo, how was it different when you came to Berlin, and how big is the place, and how was now this introducing of Bitcoin and making Berlin to Bitcoin Berlin possible? Like how did this all start, and maybe how also the locals and the government and the mayor store there reacted to all that.
The politicians haven't been involved much in the whole project. When we started here, we started going to visit businesses. There's small family business owners here, and we started going to those business so they can start accepting Bitcoin. We knew El Salvador back then, like 7, 8 months ago. It hasn't changed that much when it comes to Bitcoin adoption, or merchants accepting Bitcoin. So we knew that once we had a certain amount of businesses accepting Bitcoin, this was going to call the attention. And that's what we did. We just started, calling people's attention. There were Berliners here that we talked to them, and they liked the idea of becoming a city where there's a, big adoption of Bitcoin, because they knew that that was going to bring opportunities and it was going to be something different. So I had help from many people from Berlin. Some of them, they were not interested in Bitcoin, even though we talk about Bitcoin all the time. It's slow. It's slow. It was slowly growing on them. It was not like right away. So what we did to get them involved was like do some different cleaning campaigns or painting campaigns here in the city, and that got them involved in the project. So it wasn't not only about Bitcoin. It was not only about the Bitcoin adoption, but coming here to Berlin and trying to make something different. But yeah, the beginning was fun. Yes.
And what was the challenge? Like I imagine it was quite difficult to convince the merchants and Bitcoin to and the merchants and the people do Bitcoin. Like the people have the all over the world, people have the misunderstandings about Bitcoin being a scam, being something that will fade away. Like how was the challenges and the beginning there?
Yeah, and the beginning was the hardest because of that. The only interaction that most people had with Bitcoin was with the Chivo wallet, the government's wallet, and many people had problems with that wallet, and many people got scammed because of that wallet. And there was, that was the only interaction that people had with Bitcoin. So there were a lot of people, convinced that Bitcoin is a scam or it's not safe. And yeah, sometimes we had to work through that. And we found out that the best way for us to, try to convince people is just like try to convince them to download the app and make the first transaction and see them how smoothly that goes, and let them know that it will be that easy, that it's not something to complicate their lives, and that all we need is just to take that first step. Now, many of that people that just started with making one transaction, they are now going to our regular weekly meetings and they are learning more about Bitcoin. They are holding Bitcoin now. They want to learn more about how to save properly. So for us, that's a win. The beginning was hard, but now it's great.
That's really really cool, especially when you think about, and this is stuck out to me because the Chivo wallet came from the government. Like Bitcoin basically was a government program, kind of, and it came from top down. Like it's bottom up basically Bitcoin, but in the Bitcoin adoption from Nayib Bukele, it came from them directly. Like adopt Bitcoin. The president talks about Bitcoin positively, and still people and citizens says, "Oh, it's a scam." Because I often see that here because the governments and the officials are saying, "Oh, it's nothing, it's a scam," stuff like that, and so it comes from top down, and people are always just repeating, "Oh, it's a scam." But it's interesting that in a country where the president, like the highest, kind of the highest person there, if you think about that hierarchy, um, also in that country, people pursue it like a scam. It's interesting to see.
There needs to be something communicated here is that the level of trust in institutions is obviously much lower in Latin America, considering the level of corruption in general from past decades. I don't know if I'm right in saying that, Gerardo, but
No,
there's
that's right. That's correct. Yes.
whereas in Ireland, for example, as a comparison, everyone generally does trust that the government has their best interest in heart, and are generally happier about the level of corruption. So Bitcoin is kind of more poised for places with more distrust with institutions, considering its decentralized nature. Um, so Nayib has proposed that the law in El Salvador. A lot of people have automatically boxed Bitcoin in with the president and immediately considered a political money, which is contrary to its founding rules, right?
Yeah. And maybe for Bitcoin Berlin and what Gerardo started and what you, Charlie, also working on, what specific projects are you working on? Like you're going from merchant to merchant, trying to orange build them. You're also having local meetups where you educate people. So like what's going on there with the whole project?
Yes. So it started with onboarding businesses, but now it's more than that. We have our own center, like at headquarters, where we have weekly meetups, at least one class every Sunday. I'm sorry, every Monday, 6:30 p.m. And locals comes, so the classes are for locals. Everything is in Spanish. They come and learn more about Bitcoin. They come and learn to, different ways to make Bitcoin useful, or how to they can save Bitcoin. Just yesterday we had a local from Berlin, young guy, 18 years old. He um, gave us a talk about how Bitcoin beats the inflation on US dollars. And it was really interesting because he came, a couple of times to the Monday meetings, and all of a sudden he says, I would like to be on one of those Monday talks, and I would like to give one. And which is, I'm pretty sure that for anyone involved in this project, and that knows what the kind of work that we are doing, that's a, huge smile that comes to our faces when we hear something like that. Um, but yes, we do that. We keep onboarding businesses. We are giving Bitcoin education now, and we keep doing social projects because we know that that's how some people will approach to our project. Um, Among some other different things, we're giving English classes in the center, and Charlie is giving a lot of education here. He knows a lot about economics, so not only about Bitcoin but also about economics. You know, And yes, Charlie can tell you a little bit more about what else we're doing here. There's a lot of things that we have in our
Yeah,
plate.
I mean, sometimes it feels like there's a lot on our plate, and being able to manage these goals and projects is probably the hardest part. We've got a certain number of people here. You know, there's a board of maybe six, seven who make the plans and put the steps ahead, and then there's a bigger group of maybe 16, 17 Bitcoiners who've arrived here, and local Bitcoiners who are very much involved in the project. And then there's everybody else in the town. So there's different layers of, I suppose, decision making. But you have to have a balance. You have to have a balance of being able to communicate what the mission is of the Bitcoin Center to the locals, because the locals, let's say, most of the people that you talk to were born in Berlin. The level of people who are not from Berlin arriving into the town is quite low. So then all of a sudden, then you have all of these tourists arriving. So people are obviously skeptical, or at least questionable, as to what is happening. So communicating that to the locals is one part, which is what we do on the Mondays, and then through the classes, like the economic classes, through the financial education, and through the English classes. But then there's also the other part. The other part is being able to communicate to the Bitcoiners in the world internationally as to what is happening in the town. So we have certain activities. There's a monthly meetup that is being organized to then lead up to this mini conference in April 8th, which is, its aim is basically to showcase what does a Bitcoin circular economy look like, and how does it affect the locals? How does it affect the economics of that town? Um, how do we use the tools, the Bitcoin tools, in order to reduce the friction of transaction? These are all really, really important questions that you have to ask. Um, and people talk about circular economies a lot, and like, we're doing a circular economy. People don't put enough thought into, like, what are the consequences of Bitcoin circulating rather than dollars? How does this affect people's mentality? How does it affect people's savings? How does it affect investment? And I think these are questions that we are asking ourselves and iterating through in real time. I don't know if you understand, Robin, what I'm trying to say here, but it's like a sandbox. It's like an opportunity for people to apply all these theories that they have, because Bitcoiners have loads of theories. They have loads of ideas of how the world is going to be in the future. But this is a real use case. This is when you actually get to ask the real questions and see what the real problems are when using Bitcoin. So the conference is coming up. We've got the classes happening. We've also got a podcast room being set up here. I'm sitting in it right now, and it's just forming. And then we have real estate. So Bitcoiners who want to arrive, or locals who want to rent out their houses, they can do it through the center. And then we also, I don't know if you've mentioned this, Gerardo, but we have the IT training happening here, which is, I think it's just an amazing project. So a link is occurring between the Bitcoin Center in Berlin and a local university in San Miguel to give some sort of authority to the classes giving here at the center. And we've fortunately been donated over 12 computers to the center. We have a designed area just to give typing classes, Microsoft product classes, Excel, Word, all the basic ingredients for someone to be useful in a remote job. And what that allows for us to do, and for the locals to do, is get trained up on how to be useful in a call center, um, at any remote job, and allow for Bitcoin to come into the town from abroad, injecting Bitcoin into the local economy.
I'm super excited to announce that this podcast just got the first ever sponsor. I just started the podcast out like 3 months ago, and now we have 21 Bitcoin as a partner for this podcast. 21 Bitcoin is Bitcoin only from day one, and they teach and preach self custody. This is my go to exchange when someone asks me, oh, where can I buy my Bitcoin from? This is the easiest entry for Bitcoiners. And if you want lower fees, plus at the same time support this podcast, use code Robin and click the link in the description. How far would you say this local circular economy has come? Like, how many merchants are there that actually accept Bitcoin? How many people, like from the local Berliners, the local El Salvadorians in the town, like how many are there? They are actually like Bitcoiners and getting involved, and how they are seeing the whole thing. What percentage of like progress would you give it to like a full-fledged Bitcoin city? Because I imagine it's not quite there yet, but it's on the way.
Well, if there's a place that can be called Bitcoin City, Berlin is the place. I mean, if we're talking about a place with adoption, I think Berlin is the place where more Bitcoin. It's where you can live with Bitcoin. Um, we are about maybe over 100 now, over 100 merchants that accept Bitcoin. Here in Berlin, you can pretty much go and just pay with your phone. Bitcoin everywhere. You can pay small things like bread, milk, and your eggs, your coffee, and you can eat pupusas, you can eat steaks, you can go and pay your gasoline with Bitcoin. Um, you can car wash. You can wash your car. You can go to the car wash and pay with Bitcoin. I mean, you can pretty much go here in Berlin without using fiat or using US dollars. Then we are not that worried now to keep onboarding business. I mean, that's important part. We keep doing it, and every week there's more and more businesses being added. But what we want to do is like teach those that already set Bitcoin, the philosophy of Bitcoin, so they understand what Bitcoin really is. Um, um, some of them they use Bitcoin just as a tool, a payment tool, and we really want to get to those businesses because there's a lot of them that started like that, but just accepting Bitcoin as another form of payment. But now they are Bitcoiners. They want to learn more. They are holding Bitcoin, and they are there on Monday meetings. And we want most of the businesses accepting Bitcoin and regular citizens to approach us to the center and learn more about that.
Really cool. Maybe Charlie, before I think you have to go in a few minutes now. As you are moved from London to El Salvador to Berlin, do you recommend that to like people that are living in the West to do that? And why are you recommending? And if you recommended it, why are you recommending it to live in El Salvador, making like the Bitcoin circular economy, work on that as a Bitcoiner that watches like the show in, I don't know, London, America, Germany?
Okay, well, I think first of all we need to set the scene for what's happening in the world and what's about to come. You need to, like, it depends on your worldview. I think that's super important. If you think that the world is going to become more stable over the next couple of decades, then you're okay. You can stay where you are. But if you can increasingly see that there's no way but for chaos to ensue in certain areas, and with regards to financial inflation and and towards division and the clashing. There's a lot of IOUs in the world. Let's just say a lot of that's just debt. So a lot of people have claims on the scarce resources that exist. And being able to figure out who owns what is is the hardest thing. And it happens every 100 years or so where there's a debt restructuring. So that's where people decide who actually is going to pay back and who owns whatever. So this scene is we're coming into it, and just imagine this this massive clash of right who owns what. Here in El Salvador, there's a clear assignation as to who owns what. Their property rights are very much clear here, and that's thanks to Bitcoin and it's thanks to the governance in this country. So if you are liberty minded, if you believe in private property, if you believe in capitalism And if you believe that entrepreneurs are good for the world, then I fully recommend you to come over here. If you believe in Bitcoin's vision of the future, and if you think of what Naive is doing in terms of reducing crime and allowing for families and for individuals to thrive and do whatever they believe is good for the world, then I recommend for you to come over. If you are used to being able to receive a paycheck without um, adding value, if you are used to uh, working in a bureaucratic job where you're making a lot of money, uh, it might be a tough transition and it might not be the best place for you. So it depends on what your worldview is. I believe if you're more capitalistic, libertarian orientated, then El Salvador is a fantastic place to come. And try and upgrade the world, I suppose. I think that's the general mental attitude. And I think what you're doing, Robin, with this is part of that. So yeah, come check it out. See if it's your cup of tea. Certainly believe that this is a place for me over the next few years. So maybe someone else also has the same feeling when coming.
Interesting. How easy is it to transition to El Salvador from like a country from, let's say, London, let's say Germany, let's say America? Like, how easy is it to just go there? Do you have to bring something for capital? How easy does it get the visum in like El Salvador? How is the switch going?
I mean, it's different for every individual. It depends on your standard of living before coming here. There's varying standards of living within the Western world. You can be someone with a very decent job or business in the Western world. If you can sell that and come over with a cushion, I highly recommend that because there's going to be a period of understanding people's needs in this country. For you to be able to sustain yourself, you need to either work in a job here or start a business. And to start a business, you need to know what people need. So I recommend for people to have a bit of a cushion and to have it in Bitcoin, not in other currencies when coming over. And I recommend for you to reach out to people who are here and find projects that appeal to you within El Salvador and reach out to the individuals who are involved with that so that you get an idea of the landscape. There's varying degrees of standards of living even in El Salvador. So you can go to El Zonte and you can pay $2,000 a month for an apartment if you want, and you can live a much better life than in any Western country if you so much appeal. But you also can come to places, small towns, and you can live on $150 a month rent and have a house if you really want to. So it depends on what you prioritize in terms of your comforts, how much you're willing to take. Like in Berlin, water flows through once every 2 days, even though you always have water because you have systems in place. There's different levels of infrastructure that you might have to get used to. So I mean, if you're more rough and ready, if you've been traveling and you can do it, then so be it. If you're coming from a job that's you have everything in place, then I recommend for you to have more capital. If you don't understand Spanish, I recommend for you to have more capital because you're going to spend more to be able to deal with things. But it's just the way it goes. So it's a case by case situation, but always good to have a cushion.
I think it's I think more and more people are thinking of moving to El Salvador. Also, like had some guests on who are actually like, oh, I think I want to move there. I'm not sure right now. Some even have plans. They're like, okay, in 2 years when we figure it out with the kids and everything, then we're moving. So I think more and more Bitcoiners have it on their mind to move like to Bitcoin City to El Salvador, especially those that are really involved in the community because you can actually see the Bitcoin progress. I mean, there are other places where also like kind of an adoption is going on. For example, in Lugano, in Switzerland, but I think it's quite different from like El Salvador. Maybe to like because Charlie does not have. Yeah, go ahead.
No, if one more question, I can answer it and then.
Okay, perfect. And let's have the end routine of the podcast is that the previous guest asks a question for the next guest, and guest, the question is actually coming from Lina Seiche, from the previous guest, as we talked about her earlier. And maybe the question for the both of you, what is the best argument till now that you found to convince someone of Bitcoin?
You go first, Gerardo.
Sorry, what's the best argument? Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question from the previous guest was like, what is the best argument to convince someone of Bitcoin?
We've seen that many people they have never asked themselves the question where money comes from, and they don't get why is it that we use printed money. If you put that in perspective to people, I mean, it's kind of cruel actually, but if you put that in perspective, when you talk to people and you let them know that they are working 10, 12, 14 hours a day for printed money, they soon come to the realization. And the next step is they go like, what's the alternative? And we know the alternative is Bitcoin, so probably that.
Once you understand that the fiat money is rugged, it's easier to adopt the sound money system. Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
I like. I think another one is if you want to build a table, you need to get a measuring stick to figure out like the measurements of building that table. Same thing with civilization. You need to understand the value of things to be able to coordinate your actions as humans, so we know how much things are. So I know how much to invest or how much money I'm going to make. These are all the principles of making economic calculation. So we have the measuring stick, the meter stick for the table. What's our measuring stick for the value of things? Our measuring stick is dollars. What if people keep changing the actual meter stick? If people kept changing the amount of centimeters in a meter stick every day, how the hell is anybody supposed? And it's different in different countries. How are people supposed to actually construct a railway that goes across countries? How can you build? Bitcoin is our measuring stick. Just like 1 meter has a limit of 1 meter, Bitcoin has a limit of 21 million. And through that measuring stick of Bitcoin, we can value all of the things around us. So I think that's one that allows us to understand how we coordinate in between countries, how do we coordinate in between communities and individuals, and how we can build a society that actually is able to find peace. So that's the aim. I mean, it might not be for total beginners, but I definitely think that it opens up a channel.
Yeah, and also it gives the perspective to what Bitcoin is, and then maybe like even a normie can like, oh, right, the stick should not change. Like meter should always be a meter, and when we increase the value of the euro and have inflation, then the meter is changing every year, and it's a crazy point to end the podcast. And I think we got an interesting overview, a short overview of the Bitcoin Berlin project, and maybe we can do like in 1, 2, 3 years, like a progression, a second round of that podcast, and see how further we are going with the Bitcoin adoption in El Salvador. Maybe there are other countries that are in a similar stage than El Salvador right now is. That will be interesting to see. And thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Gerardo, for your time. And is there anything more you want to add? Anything appeal to people, point to people? Where can people get in touch with you guys if they want to?
Well, yes, the invitation is always to any people that lives outside El Salvador or any Salvadorian living here, any Bitcoiner living here in El Salvador, to come and visit Berlin, to come and see for themselves, that don't trust what we say, so they can come and verify how Bitcoin adoption looks like here. And well, yeah, that will be my message.
Yeah,
Charlie?
I definitely think that we need there's a lot of work to be done. People are looking, there's a lot of work to be done. We need people on the ground. If you have any sort of skills that you think can be contributed, come. There's volunteer positions here for you to learn what it's like to live in a circular economy. And you can get involved with the project. You can get to know the people here. You can get to understand what are the problems and then try and apply that in other towns. So there's a huge learning experience here. It's a real Bitcoin standard in Berlin. So do come check it out and see if your skills come to use.
Thank you
Great.
for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. That was huge.
Thank you.